Hello, this is Christina Alonso presenting the Sprint 2 Daily Scrum meetings. The product owner of this project is Hadiya Hafar and the mentor is Masood Sajadi. Both developers, myself, Christina Alonso, and Robert Panoff, were present in all of the following meetings. On the first meeting, I discussed that I planned to start the code for scrolling, and Rob discussed that he had planned to load up correct software on Raspberry Pi. By the next meeting, I had done research and added a scroll bar, and Rob had played with the Raspberry Pi and attempted to get it working correctly, and planned to continue working on the Raspberry Pi. The next week, we debugged scrolling and canvas drawing while Robert attempted to hook up the touchscreen to the Raspberry Pi. On the next meeting, I mentioned that I had finished debugging and created saving canvas functionality, while Rob mentioned that he had attempted to get the touchscreen working on the Raspberry Pi and would continue working on that. In the next meeting, I had enabled saving capabilities for the canvas image and was working on debugging saving capabilities, while Rob began looking into alternatives to software installed on Raspberry Pi and would continue until the next Scrum meeting. On the next day, I had finished debugging for the saving capabilities and began working on the user interface, while Rob was working on researching alternatives and having difficulties finding solutions that aren't already implemented in a simple fashion. The next meeting, I created a draft layout for the canvas and would work on improving the layout. Rob researched alternatives and would continue doing this research. He was having difficulty finding solutions that aren't already implemented. The next meeting, I worked on improving the layout for the canvas, and improving the design of the canvas toolbar was what I would be working on next. Robert was still researching alternatives and still having some difficulties finding. On the next meeting, I improved the design of the Canvas toolbar, and after speaking with a TA and research, we both decided to shift the project to a web application. So by the next Scrum meeting, I will be working on choosing a web app language and researching how to create the same canvas for the web. Rob was researching alternatives and speaking to the TA as well, and the TA helped us come up with a web portal idea that would allow different users or people sitting in the table to connect to the same instance and then see what other people were doing. He will be attempting to do this by having each user remote into the same instance and then partition control. What is planned for the next Scrum meeting is to figure out how to remote multiple users into the same desktop via a web portal. On the last daily Scrum meeting of this sprint, I began coding in JavaScript and recreating the canvas that was previously written in Java. Rob began looking into RD protocols, and the hurdles he encountered were having user remote in the same instance rapidly appearing more difficult than is feasible. For any questions, you can contact myself in the email provided or Masood Sajadi, our mentor, with the email provided.